How's it going? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and this is the Early Bird Artcast. My good friends Scott and Joshua Kimball, they do an Artcast that was started by Jeff Lafferty. And Jeff Lafferty had a bunch of different ways he did it, and he still kind of does it in his own way. But he used to do it during the day and stuff too. When in those I actually could join, but I can't join the late night one because they're doing it while I'm sleeping. So that's the problem with that. So I created the Early Bird Artcast, and that's what I'm doing here. I was supposed to have a friend on who I haven't had on for a while because she's been doing some other things. But Teresa Del Pilar was supposed to come on. She might possibly jump in still. It's possible. Possible. But she brought up a really cool topic, and I kind of wish that she was able to be here because I have a feeling that we're going to have a bit of differing opinions. And it'd be interesting to have her be able to kind of pose her view of this. But she is in the chat, so that's really cool. Like I said, she may pop in. But we're talking today about basically work-life balance. If I'm understanding the thing correctly, she was asking, when have we done enough, and when are we doing too much? And basically, what I'm thinking is the work-life balance. I'm assuming she's talking about within the career of trying to make comics work and stuff like that, or maybe just life and stuff. So, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm becoming more and more opinionated about it. And I don't really want to step on anybody's toes. Everybody's got a different view of this, and really, when it comes down to it, what you want to do is your own personal decision and your own personal view. And all methods are good, or well, let's see, all methods are valid, and I certainly wouldn't judge anybody. But I do, like I said, I am a bit opinionated about this one. And I could be wrong. I always reserve the right to be wrong and change my mind later. On things. But this is the thing. I've been kind of talking about pushing pretty heavily when it comes to promoting what you're doing for your comics, and also when it comes to creating comics and all that, and creating an art career, whatever it is you do, writing, the art, whatever. And I constantly am pushing myself. And the thing is, when is it ever enough? Well, I don't know if it's ever too much or enough from an outsider's perspective. I was kind of wondering in her question, and you can find links for Teresa down in the description, and you know where to find me as always. I'll probably mention it again later, but DonkeyJawProjects.com and Marsh Comics on Twitter and Instagram, and Marsh Comics on TikTok. I'm having a lot of fun over there. And so, I'm trying to push really hard on things, but like I was saying, like from an outsider's perspective, I don't actually think that. I think that the job of promoting comics and getting eyes on your comics, and this actually relates to another suggestion that I had from my buddy Marius as well. Let's see if oh, it looks like Karen's awake. I thought that meant she was going to join in, but I don't see that she necessarily is. But I would love to have you on, Karen, if you're around. Like, maybe we could schedule it sometime. And, we could talk about, some of the stuff that you're doing. And, I would love to have you on, Karen, if you're around. Like, maybe we could schedule it sometime. But I would love to have you on, Karen, if you're around. Like, maybe we could schedule it sometime if you're around, I want to have you on to talk about. There's a couple topics I'd like to talk to you about. So, anyways, yeah, Marius had one called. Let's see. He says ideas on how to get people interested in your own IP, which I think I will do a separate video on that. I have done videos like that, but I'll probably be doing different versions of that video over and over and over again throughout my channel, because it's just something that we're always thinking about and always trying to work out. But it is related to this topic, and you know, the thing is, like I said, the job of making comics is way bigger than us, than one individual. The job of promoting those comics and getting your IP out there and getting eyes on it is way bigger than any individual. There are companies dedicated. Well, they should be dedicated. Marvel and DC. I'm looking at you. Yes, I could. People are always like the big two. They get vague about it. I'm calling you guys out. Like, seriously. um, you know, they're just. I don't like if they have a department that tries to sell comics or promote comics. I don't know where they are. I'm their target audience, and I haven't heard from them. Um, not that much, really, but maybe I'm not their target audience. I'm more into indie comics, anyways. But they don't seem to do a great job, in my opinion. But the for entertain I mean, when it comes down to it, comics are entertainment, and there are plenty of entertainment companies out there who have teams and many employees working hard to get the word out about what they're doing, and even then they're not always successful. um, so when have you done enough, and when have you done too much? From an outsider perspective, like from an audience, I don't really see like any point where there you've done enough or too. you know I guess if you've reached Michael Jackson status, meaning like when he was big in his heyday, like, because who I say Michael Jackson because who doesn't know who he is? Is there anybody else on the planet who has gotten to the fame that he's gotten? Maybe, maybe the Pope or something, or I mean, there are other people who've gotten to that status, but but the point is, if you've gotten to a status of that, then I guess maybe then you can say it's enough. But even Michael Jackson, he had his album Thriller, and he had like his big albums, and then I think his later albums were kind of resting on the laurels of what he had done previously. And when you try new things with your music or art or whatever it is, you still need to work really hard to get that special message out, that special kind of branding out. It's really hard to convince people to pay attention to a new way of doing things. I think of like Metallica now. I know some of these references really date me because, I mean, literally Michael Jackson's been dead for a while now. Unfortunate. Well, I'm not going to get into the Michael Jackson debate. I almost don't like to bring him up as an example, but you know, again, these references might date me. I think of Metallica when they kind of changed their whole sound and stuff. You know, they probably could have branded differently. Maybe they should have just created a different you know group name for that project or something. I don't know. I think back then, switching up your whole style and changing things up was not conducive to the industry that they were in, as much as now I feel like you can make changes. It really depends. Like for me, I feel like every project is a whole new thing, and I'm I think through my actions, I'm hoping that I'll be able to teach my audience that that's what I am. I am somebody who is going to bring you something new and different and fresh every time out the box, to a certain degree. Um, so that's kind of part of it. But the thing is these entertainment industries have machines behind them, and even that's sometimes not enough. The act of making comics, for one person to do everything, which I'm learning, especially, I mean, I've done everything many times. I've done everything when I created a hip hop album years ago, and I've done everything a few hip hop albums, but also I've done everything when it comes to like mini comics and stuff. And right now, outside of the writing, I'm doing everything with Legends of the Lone Wolf, Sword of the Samurai. And I'm realizing that I don't want to do everything anymore, if I can help it. And so I have a project called Calamity Jane, which I'm hopefully hiring Michael Emirates to do the design and pencil work for, and then I'll do the inks. And who knows, maybe I'll hire a colorist or something like that. I don't know. Um, and maybe a letterer. You never know. It depends on how well it does and how much money I can get up. But if I can get enough money up, I would love to hire other people to do other parts of the job. I'm doing the writing and the inking. I think is probably for sure, unless for some reason I get Mike to do the inking as well. Like maybe I'll have enough money to do that. I don't know. But that being said, I have other projects. Big Wrath I'm working on with Peter. I'm going to be doing the penciling for that, and he's going to be doing the inking. And I may or may not play other duties. I'm also doing the writing for that one. We're kind of collabing on all sides with that, but still, there's a lot of projects that I'm doing where I'm actually collaborating with people. And yes, I can do everything, but I'm realizing that it's really hard to do everything. So how do you find a balance, with all this stuff? Well, like I said, the job is too big for you. And honestly, if you're getting into something that where the job isn't too big for you, I wonder if it's a worthwhile goal. I mean, I'm not talking about like hobby stuff, hanging out in Hobbyland and you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If all you want to do these kind of things for is a hobby, totally cool. Go forth. I will be happy to support that, and enjoy that as well if I can, because I'm always happy to support and to um, take in the stuff that people are making. If it's just time, if I have the time. Um, so anyways, if you're doing that, that's fine, totally cool. But if you're trying to make a career out of it, if you're trying to really build like kind of a brand or an audience and things like that, um, you know, I think I think the idea of balance is a myth, and um, this is where I may differ from Teresa, I think, maybe, or other people. This is where people might be like, "You're crazy, Marsh." This is where I get opinionated, or this might be something that you relate to and feel the same way about. Who knows? I'll be curious to hear down below in the comments, whether it's in the chat or in the comments on the replay, what your thoughts are on this. Um, Again, I'm not God. I'm not, the guru of making stuff. I'm just me, and these are my thoughts and ideas. But, I don't believe in balance, really. I think that life is so unbalanced. To try to create balance in your life, I feel like is you're creating an artificial environment that doesn't actually exist in nature, in reality. um life isn't balanced. Things come up all the time that screw up my equilibrium or whatever. You know, I love routine. I think a lot of people love routine, but if anybody's have a has a kid, and I don't have a kid, but I've observed people who have had kids many times, and you know, I think if you've ever had a kid, you realize real quick that there's no such thing as balance. Balance is a myth. You know, until maybe they get older, maybe, maybe. I think that sometimes people don't have more kids because the balance is thrown off so much that they can't. To me, balance is for people, and this is going to sound harsh, but balance is kind of for people in retirement homes. Oh man, I'm probably going to get some flack for that one, but I mean, to me, I don't really believe in balance. But I do believe in things like balance. I believe that there is a point where there is too much. Um, like I said, from an outsider perspective, from the goal of trying to make comics and the goal of trying to promote those comics, you kind of can never do enough. You can never really do too much. Um, I'd like to come back to that point at some point. Hopefully, I'll remember, because I can hear, some of the kind of kind of the pushback from that kind of thought as well. Um, but let me get into some of the things of when you know that things are too much. So when your priorities are wrong, that's when you're doing too much. When your health is deteriorating, that's when you're doing too much. Uh, when you're reaching the point, let's see, what did I write? Um, when you're reaching the point where you're trying the same thing over and over, and you've given it a reasonable amount of effort and time, when you're reaching the point of it still not working, you don't want to keep, you know, doing that. You don't want to keep doing stuff that doesn't work. But you got to give it a good shot, first. Whatever thing you're trying to do. This is a big one, when you're treating others badly. If what you do is so much that it's causing you to treat others badly, to me, that there's no excuse for that. I don't believe in treating others badly. I'm human. I'm sure I've done it many times in my life. Um, but I really try not to. Treating others badly is a big line that I try not to cross if at all possible. Um, when you're not centered in yourself and your purpose. This one's a little wishy washy because to me, I don't think we always know what our purpose is. And I think that our purpose is evolving. But I've gotten to a point where I feel like I really have a pretty good grasp of what my basic purpose is when it comes to my career, and it's to focus on making comics and making stories. And when I get to the point, and this, I can see this, I can feel this when it happens, when I get to the point where um, I've lost sight of that, making comics and making stories and stuff like that, and I'm doing other things and it's being distracted. That's actually a very good barometer for me. I don't know if barometer is the right metaphor, but that's a good measurement for me to realize that I need to get back to what I'm supposed to be doing and focus on that. You know, it's not balanced. There's nothing balanced really about my life, but it's centered. I believe in being centered, and knowing how to be centered. Uh, and I think art has taught me that more than anything. I feel like I've always felt like I was centered um, with art. And it looks like Teresa is here. Um, and the last thing I just want to mention before I bring her in is when you're doing something that compromises your values. I feel like that's an important one not to cross. I have certain values personally, and also my faith in God is a big thing, and I don't want to cross any of those things. So let me bring Teresa in. Hello,
Hello.
hello. Hey, you
I
made
made it.
it. That's awesome. I know how that is. I think you were talking about how Windows kind of um, Windows, uh, you know, just chooses to update out of nowhere, and it's a
Yeah,
pain in the
sort of.
butt.
It was a mix between me and Windows. Me saying, I'm going to restart before doing the stream with Mars because my computer is going slow, and then clicking on the restart and update. I was like, no.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So I'm curious. I'd like to hear your thoughts on kind of why you brought this idea up of trying to find a balance and stuff.
Oh, well, I just came in to pick on what you said, but okay.
Oh, well, you could do that too. Feel free to do
No,
that.
no, I'm joking. I'm joking. But yeah, you're coming at it from a different angle, which is always interesting. But no, I brought it up because sometimes I'm always comparing myself with other people, thinking, oh, they're doing more than me. Can I do as much as them? Or, oh, this person's doing less than me. This person could do more. And I'm always like doing that to measure how much I'm doing. And it's hard to know if you're going too hard at it or you're being, too lazy, I suppose.
Hmm.
So that's where I was coming from.
Yeah, I mean I agree. That's a tough one because it's like compare and despair type of thing, and I think a lot of us have talked about that situation. And yeah, I mean that's a good point because like I don't think that looking at other people is a good way. Like I feel like that's gonna cause you to have problems. I mean, there's kind of both things. I do look at other people and compare myself to a certain point, but there's a point where it becomes like unhealthy or whatever, and that does affect me. Am I doing? The thing is like I was saying, like I don't think you're ever really doing enough as one person trying to promote and create. Like there's
Yeah.
always, even with art, that whole saying of an art piece is never finished, it's just abandoned. Like
Yeah.
you can always do more to an art piece.
Yeah, yeah. That's sort of the thing, isn't it? Because I was coming at it from also the angle of a person that does it all themselves. And I know you, for instance, you do quite a lot. You're in several social media platforms, and I'm always very cautious about any step that I take because, as you were mentioning, in the past, I've tried to keep up with the a sort of expectation of how much work I needed to do, and I ended up sick, burnt out, with injuries in my hand and shoulders and arm, and that is something I'm always wary of because I've been in that position of being injured, being burned out, being ill, and it bumps me out a lot because I don't know if it's a question of me being weaker than other people or other people withdrawing information from me. So whether they have assistance or whether they have less pressure at their day jobs, or I don't know. It's like I'm not sure why is it that I get ill and injured and other people don't.
I think you're right that the information, maybe you're not seeing the information they're not showing, basically. Because I mean, luckily I haven't had serious physical issues, but there have been times where like I've had little things, and you know health would be a big thing to me. Like if I feel like my health is deteriorating because of what I'm doing or is being affected, you need to definitely keep check on that. And
Yeah.
my wife just said some people are prone to injury. It's so true. Like um, some people, things affect them more, and you can't make your body do something that it's physically not able to do. And if you do, health is way more important than any of this stuff. If you don't have
Mm.
health, it's pretty hard to find any enjoyment in life. That's a really tough one. And I can definitely see that, being an issue for sure.
Yeah, like I was gonna, when I said I was gonna pick on something you were saying, it was like the idea of balance that you were criticizing. Because when I say balance, I don't mean the abstract idea of balance or having everything together at the same time in balance. Because that is like an abstract ideal as perfection, or like it's just an idea that will never materialize. And I do agree with that. Like you can never have the balance as in the concept from the dictionary. But what I was talking about is like having a situation where you are not destroyed. That's my idea of balance,
Yeah.
right? Where you don't lose your friendships and family, where you don't get ill, where you don't feel like your life is horrible, those sort of things. Like staying
Yeah.
in a space where things don't go sideways. That's my idea of balance, not the definition of the dictionary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've heard of a lot of people talking about burnout. A mutual friend of ours, Mike Emirates, he had his issue with his arm.
Yeah.
Many people struggle with, depression and things like that. I'm not saying get into depression, and I think it's very important to lose this idea of keeping up with the Joneses. I think it's very easy for us to want to do that, like even just in regular life, like we get certain status symbol things, and we go into debt, or we go put it on a credit card because we feel like we want people to see us a certain way, but that's not healthy, and
No.
so and the same thing with just with art. We think as artists, that maybe that doesn't affect us. We don't care what people think. We're going to do our own thing, but it
Yeah,
does. We have our community of artists, and we don't want to be looked at as, somebody who's doing less or not working as hard.
absolutely.
I see a lot of my friends working really hard, and I feel like I'm not living up to a lot of my friends' effort when it comes, especially when it comes to kind of honing my skills and getting better at the quality and stuff like that. But I have to know who I am, and I have to know who I am in relation to my family and to my faith, and those knowing those things are super important. And that's why I feel like if there is a such thing as balance, I feel like the world isn't balanced. We have to navigate in it. But I feel like within ourselves and within, our values and things like that, we can be centered on the right things. And if there's a balance, that's what balance is for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also agree that there is this thing in online communities, even with your friends, like people that are your friends and that make comics. There is an element of, I think, I'm not sure, but I feel there is an element of judging people who don't do enough.
Mm, I think there definitely is. Um, but I also think that it's easy to perceive that people are judging you because you don't hear or know. Like there's been times where I felt like people were judging me, and then I might have had some kind of text back and forth, or a phone call or something like that, even in just regular life, and come to find out what a lot of times the truth is they're probably not judging you. And even in a more crass way, sadly, they probably don't even think that much about you. People are focused on their own thing, and we forget that it's easy to kind of get kind of paranoid and feel like people are thinking this and that about us, and sometimes we make that up in our head.
It
But
is
at the
it is
same time,
possible, yeah.
people do judge as well. There is definitely that aspect as well. So I don't want to like dismiss that.
I think there is an element of truth to what you're saying, because people don't stop and think and judge and spend like 15 minutes thinking about us. But I think that the type of thought that just crosses your mind, like this person doesn't do enough, like instant type judgment, that
Mm.
happens. And I
Yeah.
think those type of judgments really do affect the way in which people, like, they affect how many people are gonna call you up for a collaboration, how many people are gonna count on you for some project or something. I think that is what is. It's not judgment as in, oh, they're worse than me. It's a judgment in terms of, do I want to work with this person? No, they don't do enough.
Mm. Yeah, there's definitely that kind of thing too. I mean, I think about it a lot. I get pretty paranoid myself sometimes. I feel like I have a certain way I go about things that, I don't always hear cheered, and it's okay. I don't need to feel cheered on about everything, but a lot of people have a lot of support for me, which I am super grateful. Um, but I think there's just different ways of doing things, and you know, we have to try to not judge ourselves, and we have to try to not judge each other, but we are human, and it does happen. Judgment definitely is. I
Mm.
mean, I think it's almost impossible to avoid. But yeah, it's a good thing to watch out for sure, and be on guard for. And again, the more you can know who you are, what your priorities are, what your purpose is, what you want, your goals are. I mean, I think the more you can know that, the better you can kind of find your way through all that.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. Like, you have to have a clear idea in your head of what your values are, what your priorities are, and as well, especially nowadays, that you have to do everything, maybe yourself. Like, what's your priority? Is your priority becoming a better artist? Is your priority, uh, getting a bigger reach online? You have to maybe prioritize one of those elements, because otherwise it's an impossible balancing act doing everything. You can't be a great letterer, a great artist, a great writer, great on social media. You can't do everything. I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but if you have a day job, I don't know, maybe someone can. I'm not going to say you can't, but I suspect it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, you could do your best shot, but at the same time, like, see, to me, I'm always thinking, I don't think I'm doing enough, but can I do more than I'm doing? I try to think about that, but at the same time, you have to have all those other things. You have to always be checking in with yourself, and it's hard. It's really hard because, like you said, you might be reacting to thoughts that you think somebody is judging you. You might be reacting to somebody doing better in one area. It's really important to have that kind of gut check. And like, there's a lot of people who do things a lot different than me, and you know, I don't see their paths as lesser than me. They're just different. I've talked about strategies for promoting your comic and stuff, and some people do more of certain things than others, and that's okay. Like, I have some friends who are working on one project, and they might not even be saying a lot of it out publicly, or some of them are. And you know I think they have just as much a chance to have success. There's the strategy of sharpening the axe, so that when you do go to hit the tree, it's going to be a lot easier for you. I'm kind of just hitting the tree with a hammer constantly. It's not necessarily a smart way to go, but I don't there's certain disadvantages that I have where that is kind of the only way I can go a lot of times.
Mm.
I don't have time, so I'm limited on time, so I don't have a lot of time to sharpen the axe. So I'm trying to find, maybe a wrecking ball to hit the tree down or something with. So, there's just different approaches, and you got to know what your resources are and try to use your strengths to the best of your ability. And hopefully one day somebody can make up for your weaknesses who you can hire, or maybe I'll have more time sometime to kind of sharpen the axe more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point in on two ends. One is like uh there's those two approaches, like the hammer and the axe. And the thing is, like, the axe has its downfalls as well, because you're the type of person that is always sharpening the axe and never cutting the tree. Then that doesn't do anything for anyone either. And I see that sometimes people that are constantly honing one particular thing and they never actually cut the tree.
Hmm.
I'm mixing the metaphor with reality here, but I think it's clear. And then the other thing that you say is like and well, I hate this word, but talent, right? Like, what are you most suited for?
Hmm.
So if you're a great communicator, why shouldn't you focus a little bit more on the social media side rather than the technical skill of drawing? I mean, that makes sense to me because you're playing to your strengths. And
Yeah.
if people want to judge that, then that's that's their, I don't know. It's a bit mean, I think, to judge people for doing things that they're good at.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have to find out, know who you are, and you're gonna have to like be able to deflect that because you are gonna get some flack no matter what you do. You could be the nicest person in the world and still get flack for things. And as far as like sharpening the axe, you do have to attempt to cut down the tree. The tree's not gonna come down by itself, and unless if you're waiting for lightning to strike, maybe. Um, but there is a lot of value in sharpening the axe, and you know it's so true. Like I put a, I try to put as much as I possibly can out, but somebody who has taken the time to do that, once they do come out and do their thing in public, they will have a quicker process about it because their stuff looks so cool and is so amazing. And I see certain people sometimes who I know that once they get out there, it's just going to start working. And so again, I don't judge anybody for their method for sure. But I do think we have a great opportunity with social media the way it is and the way things have gone, that to not try and get in that game and hit it hard right now, I think you're kind of missing out on an opportunity. But again, you have to know yourself. There are people who do a career in comics and all this other stuff without even touching social media. So you really do have to know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the reason why I do social media is
I
not
do have to
because I
get to
am
work.
sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry. I
finish your
was just
thought.
gonna say, like, no, just that sometimes you do social media not because you feel it's necessary, but it might. Well, yeah, it's necessary. But I think for me, social media is an element that is important because I can't do work in isolation. I can't just sit down and get on with everything without having people by my side doing the same thing. I don't know. I need it
Yeah.
for motivation.
Community is a huge part of my process too. And I think
Exactly.
it is a lot for a lot of artists and creators. Um, I couldn't do it without my peers. I lean on them for a lot of things, even just for advice, for just friendship. You need the friendship. There's so many things that brings that we don't even realize sometimes.
Yeah.
So speaking about the community, I just want to thank you guys in the chat. Everybody, I'm noticing the stuff in the chat. You guys rock. And people in the replay, thank you for watching for sure. I hate to cut this short. I feel like we could talk more about this, Teresa. But I do have to go to work. I have to hit that side hustle.
No, you have to
Can
do what you have to do.
Yeah. Can you let everybody know where they can find you, Teresa?
Here on YouTube, Teresa del Pilar, the same as my name down in the thing somewhere here. And you can also find me with the same name, but with underscores between Teresa and Del and between Del and Pilar on Instagram.
Absolutely, and I definitely recommend that. Her links are in the description for Instagram and YouTube, and I love seeing Teresa's work and stuff. I think you guys will too. And you know where to find me: donkeyjawprojects.com and Marsh Comics on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll talk to you on the next one.
Bye bye.
Later.